All right, imagine adopting a sweet-looking little girl from Ukraine, only to find out she might be a grown adult masquerading as a child. Sounds like the plot of a horror movie, right? Well, that's exactly what Michael and Kristine Barnett claimed happened to them when they adopted Natalia Grace in 2010. They insisted she was not the 6-year-old orphan they were promised, but a full-grown woman with dwarfism, hiding her real identity and trying to ruin their lives from the inside. And if this whole thing feels weirdly familiar, yeah, it's because the horror movie Orphan, 2009, has almost the exact same premise. But here's the real question. Were the Barnetts telling the truth? Or did they frame an innocent child because they just didn't want her anymore? Because when police finally step in, what they uncover changes everything. The story starts in 2003 in Ukraine. Natalia Grace was born with spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia congenita, a rare genetic disorder that affects bone growth, spinal development, and causes short stature. She was placed in an orphanage as a baby, and by 2008, she was sent to the United States for adoption. At first, she was placed with a family, but for some reason they gave her up almost immediately. That's when Michael and Kristine Barnett come into the picture. The Barnetts? They weren't just any regular couple looking to adopt. They were highly educated, well-off, and already raising 3 biological sons, one of whom was a child prodigy. In 2010, they adopt Natalia, believing she's a 6-year-old Ukrainian orphan. But within months, Kristine starts claiming something is seriously wrong. She says Natalia isn't acting like a child, she's cussing like an adult, has advanced social skills, and according to Kristine, shows signs of being much older than they were told. And then, the allegations get even darker. Kristine tells the media that Natalia is trying to hurt them. She claims Natalia pushed her toward an electric fence, tried to drag her into oncoming traffic, and even stood over their beds at night holding sharp objects. At this point, the Barnetts aren't just scared. They're convinced they've been scammed. So what do? They take Natalia to doctors, and this is where things get real messy. Some doctors say she's just a child, others, not so sure. One physician reportedly writes that Natalia could be a teenager or even in her 20s. But here's the thing, bone density scans and dental records later suggest she was much younger. So now we have 2 conflicting possibilities. 1, Natalia is actually a child, and the Barnetts are abandoning her based on paranoia. 2, Natalia is a full-grown adult, pretending to be a child for some disturbing reason. And the Barnetts? They double down. In 2012, they take the wildest legal step possible. They go to Marion County Court in Indiana and get a judge to legally change Natalia's birth year from 2003 to 1989, which would make her 22 years old at the time. And just like that, Natalia goes from being a 10-year-old child to a 22-year-old woman, on paper at least. And that one decision sets off a chain of events that no one saw coming. Real quick, if you like this story so far, go ahead and like, comment, and hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next on Talescape. All right, back to it. With Natalia's legal age changed, the Barnetts waste no time cutting ties. They claim she's not a child, so they start treating her like an independent adult. They rent her an apartment in Lafayette, Indiana. They pay for a few months of rent. They set her up with food stamps. And then they move to Canada. They don't tell Natalia where they're going. They don't check in on her. They just disappear, leaving her completely alone. Now, if you believe their side of the story, this makes sense. They thought they were victims of an adoption scam. They thought Natalia was a grown woman pretending to be a child. But here's the problem. Natalia is struggling to survive on her own. Neighbors start noticing that she doesn't act like an adult at all. She's confused. She doesn't know how to do basic things like budget money or cook for herself. She doesn't even understand how to get to the grocery store, and within a few months, she's kicked out of her apartment for unpaid rent. At this point, her situation is bad. But then, it gets so much worse. By 2014, Natalia is taken in by a new couple, Antoine and Cynthia Mans. And as soon as they start living with her, they know something's not right. They take Natalia to multiple doctors, and guess what? The medical tests completely contradict what the Barnetts claimed. Instead of being in her mid-20s, like her paperwork now says, these tests suggest she's still a teenager. So now, the question isn't just whether Natalia was really an adult all along. The real question is, did the Barnetts lie about her age just to get rid of her? Because if Natalia was still a minor in 2013 when they abandoned her, that's not just bad parenting. That's a crime. By 2019, the case completely explodes when Natalia's story goes public. Prosecutors officially charge Michael and Kristine Barnett with neglect of a dependent. They claim that Natalia was actually a child and that the Barnetts lied to get her legal age changed so they could dump her without facing legal trouble. And now, Michael and Kristine are facing serious prison time. But here's the crazy part. Michael and Kristine turn on each other. Michael says it was all Kristine's idea, that he went along with it because he was scared of her. Kristine, she vanishes completely, doesn't show up to hearings, avoids the media, and refuses to take the blame. And when the trial finally begins, the entire world is watching. By 2022, the Barnetts are finally in court, and the prosecution is coming for them hard. If Natalia was a minor when they left her in that apartment, that's child neglect, plain and simple. But the defense? They double down on their story. They argue that Natalia was never a child to begin with. They bring up old medical reports, testimony from doctors who weren't sure of her age, and, most importantly, that court order from 2012 that legally changed her birth year to 1989. And technically, that document is still valid. So no matter what new doctors say, on paper, Natalia was an adult when they left her. And that becomes the legal loophole that saves them. Because after weeks of testimony, the jury comes back with a verdict. Michael Barnett, not guilty. Kristine, charges dismissed due to lack of evidence. And just like that, they walk free. Now, you'd think that'd be the end of it, right? But nope, the internet goes insane. Because even though the court says the Barnetts weren't legally responsible, people are still divided. Half the world thinks Natalia was just an innocent kid, abandoned because her adoptive parents got tired of her. The other half, still convinced she was some con artist who tricked everyone. And then, Natalia finally speaks out. She does an interview with Dr. Phil, and she's not the monster the Barnetts described. She's soft-spoken, emotional, completely confused about why they thought she was dangerous. And when she's asked directly, "Are you a child or were you lying?" her response, "I just wanted a family." And honestly, that's heartbreaking. Meanwhile, Michael Barnett won't stop talking. After the trial, he writes a tell-all book, does interviews, and keeps pushing the idea that he and Kristine were victims. Kristine, though, she completely disappears. No interviews, no statements. Nothing. For someone who once went on national television calling Natalia a psychopath, her total silence after the trial raises even more questions. Did she realize she took it too far, or did she just want the story to fade away? By 2023, Natalia is finally in a stable home. She's now living with the DePaul family, the same people who tried to adopt her years earlier, before the Barnetts got involved. And for the first time, she's being treated like a real person. No more courtroom battles, no more people debating if she's a fraud, just a chance to live a normal life. The DePauls teach her basic life skills, help her manage her disability, and, most importantly, they believe her. They've said Natalia is funny, kind, and just wants to belong. And if the Barnetts were telling the truth about her being a dangerous adult, wouldn't the DePauls have seen any of that by now? But here's the thing. Even today, no one really knows how old Natalia was when all of this happened. All we know is that a little girl, real or not, got lost in the system. And if the Barnetts were telling the truth, they were victims of the strangest adoption scam in history. But if they were lying, then they abandoned a helpless child and made her the villain of her own story. That's the story. Now I want to hear what you think. Drop a comment below. Let's talk about it. And if you like this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.